All right, everybody, welcome one, welcome all. It is, in fact, the Pauper Pop Off. We are heading into this game between Sapo and Apollo, and it looks like it's going to be
Hot
Priest
dog
versus Warrior to start off with.
Ooh, all right. I hope everyone has got some popcorn ready because this is going to be a long one.
Definitely can be. I'm looking at Sapo's Priest list right now, and I'm seeing a lot of control tools. Shadow Words, Death, and Pain, of course, have been excellent for a long time. Acolyte of Pain making a proud resurgence. A common Hall of Famed, but yeah.
Love Acolyte of Pain. Something that's worth noting, by the way, is if you go on the deck lists for Apollo, his priest is not quite legal, so he had to have some of those replacement cards that we were talking about earlier, because he has, in his official deck list, has Dragon Maw, Overseer, and Mass Dispel, which are, of course, as we all know, rare cards.
Rares.
And we don't like the cut of that jib around these parts. No siree, Bob. But an interesting things is seeing how a control deck works in this, because there really aren't that many control decks, just because at basic and common, a lot of classes just simply don't have the tools to control the board like Priest does, or potentially even Mage does.
Yeah, and it looks like this particular Priest build coming in from Sapo is looking to get on the board. Here's another one of those recently Hall of Fame cards that we're going to get to see come back, the Northshire Cleric. It looks like this is a sort of a take on combo Priest from back before all of those cards were Hall of Famed. You know, the Priest and the Acolyte of Pain. So there's some high health creatures in here. Henge-Clan Shade Quill has a ton of health, has 7 health. Overconfident Orc has 6 health. And we see the classic combo Divine Spirit Inner Fire. So if Sapo ever gets ahead on board and draws a bunch of cards, watch out for huge damage.
Now, what I'm interested to see is I have not seen how this deck works without the Power Word that gives the +2 health. Now, since that's been effectively nerfed to not draw a card anymore, I'm curious how this deck is going to work without that, because that did two things. One, it basically increased your goals twofold, because it drew closer to the combo, but also gave more health, which you absolutely need. And we're not seeing any of that in this particular build. So it'll be interesting to see if this combo will be as deadly as it has been in the past.
Yeah, deck velocity is so important, card draw is so important, and we're going to see Apollo going to be generating off his Ethereal Lackey. Takes the Crush.
I like the Crush pick.
This destroys a minion, and it costs 4 less if you control a damaged minion. So there's...
Which, if you're playing Warrior, odds are pretty good, or even fighting Priest, odds are pretty good. There's going to be a damaged minion.
Oh, yeah. And so, man, Overconfident Orc is just one of those new cards that I sort of didn't think a whole lot about.
I remember you sleeping on that card. I remember watching your opening stream, and you're being like, this is not good. And I was like, I think it's not going to be bad. And you're like, nah. Yeah. Of course, you were right about so many other cards that I could never have predicted. But that one card, I was like, haha, it's 1 point for Evan.
Yeah, I was like, mediocre. But then, like the villain in a Mad Max movie, I turned out to be wrong and dead.
It was presented to you by one of your people. You did the thing where you put your thumb in the middle and you shot the thumb down.
Yeah, that's how I give it.
It rose up in a fiery anger.
So looking at the hand for Sapo right now, has that Acolyte of Pain. We see a lot of healing and the possibility of drawing a bunch of cards this turn. Divine Hymn, for example, would allow for up to 3 cards drawn this turn, if you wanted to go for something like that. Renew, of course, discovers cards as well.
Yeah, so what I'm really liking about the ideas behind that is normally with the combo Priest, you want to get a minion on the board, and then you want to pump it immediately, and then you want to let it going. But this, cards like Divine Hymn allow you to have some stickier minions, and being able to swarm the board a little bit gives you more options of minions to hit with your combo.
Yeah, and we're going to see this Warrior is definitely going to feel the loss of Brawl.
Chef's kiss. Yeah, right, exactly. Because like we were saying, most decks do not have efficient wide board removal. I mean, we've seen most decks have the ability to get rid of single targets, but not on a huge wave. I think Priest has it. I believe Paladin has it. I believe Druid has it, and I think and Mage, and I think those are the only 4 classes that have major removal board clears at this point in the game.
And a lot of those are damage based. You know, you're used to a lot of your ultra premium removal, your brawls and stuff, not caring about what the stats are. Looking at the stats on this board right now, we're going to see another Faceless Rager hit the board for Sapo. Says this is 3 6 health creatures. So now Sapo just needs to find I'm going to just do a quick mouse over, make sure. Okay, yeah. Just needs to find his Divine Spirits and Inner Fires, and all of a sudden he is going to be cooking with high octane gasoline.
Mm-hmm. And against any other deck besides a Warrior, I would say, well, it's very possible that he doesn't need those things. However, Warrior's ability to stay alive, put taunt minions out, remove some threats is really good. So it's very, very possible the Warrior is able to deal with this board.
Psionic Probe. Copy a spell in your opponent's deck and add it to your hand.
Interesting. That's a fun one.
Yeah, gonna grab and execute.
Execute is good. Execute is very good.
And man, we're seeing the power level of this Radiant Elemental. We actually saw a strategy similar to this, but with creatures from Shifty, trying to discount some of his cards. And Radiant Elemental making cards cost 0, making spells cost 0, just allows for so many powerful effects. I mean, Sapo's playing with, at this point, like a 40-card deck at this point. He's generated so many cards from outside the game.
Right, and those cards come in cheap and fast.
Yeah, and the ability of Apollo to sort of weather this onslaught. And like you were saying, Sapo may not even need Divine Spirit Inner Fire. We do see Divine Spirit in the hand now. Going to be able to crank one of these creatures up to 12 life. That may not even be necessary, because starting now, Sapo's going to be able to start just carving off chunks of life and continuing to draw with this unanswered Northshire Cleric.
Yeah, I'm curious what tools Apollo had in mind to maybe come back from, or I'm curious what tools even exist in the Pauper format that can come back from a board like this, because really I think that's why I like the idea of cards that discover things, just because they allow you to, A, generate more value, but first and foremost, they allow you to generate more value, and second of all, they allow you to look for things that are not in the Pauper format, things that are these bigger board clears and things like that.
And if Apollo, can you imagine? So Apollo played that Ethereal Lackey several turns ago. If there had been a brawl offered, the texture of this game is totally different. But right now,
changed entirely. Now there is the thought that if you can last out to the Primordial Drake, which I'm not certain is going to be possible, you might have something. I just am not liking those odds, and especially in a deck that likes to. Well, yeah, this might be it.
And we definitely see the execute in hand. There is another Divine Spirit if Sapo wants to, potentially overcommit. But no such situation going to happen. Sapo just going to make sure that there's no ability for Apollo. There's the Primordial Drakes.
Oh, hang on, Amber Watcher.
Okay, gonna be able to
probably not enough, but yeah, but a great pull. That's what I'm saying. Those the ones that give you random cards can potentially be really, really cool. Now, do you want to rely on RNG? Absolutely not. However, is it cool to have one of those just in your back pocket just in case? I think so.
Sometimes you have to just find, like, when is it to the point to where the only way I win this is with a lucky rip?
Well, what you can do is you can find cards, I think, that work into your game plan. Like, for instance, I remember when I built a Zulak for ours, I put Jeweled Scarab. Actually, I put Jeweled Scarab in pretty much every deck just because that does a lot of things. It lets you discover one of those out-of-game cards, but it also lets you round out your curve a little bit. Okay, we see Apollo is using the Warrior again against a Pirate Warrior, or what appears to be a Pirate Warrior from Sepulchre.
And while we were between matches, I asked, I'm asking each player, which basic and common card is their favorite to represent them on the actual stream, and he actually chose the ship's cannon. So
this man, the pirate's life is for him.
So yeah, no surprise, running 2 copies of ship's cannon in his Pirate Warrior, and also playing some cool ones that were a lot of times not considered necessarily warrior, like for Warrior. For example, Sharkfin Fan is that 2-mana pirate that a lot of people just thought was a rogue card.
Yeah, right. I did, for sure.
Yeah, it was excellent in very specific situations in rogue, but really in a situation like this, you were talking about the downshift in power level, or just sort of, and in some places like the sideways shift in power level. All of a sudden, a Sharkfin Fan just generating 1/1s can just be a major problem to deal with, especially without those, swipes and starfalls and stuff.
Right, absolutely, pretty good. And it's really interesting to see, what decks look like. First of all, what decks do downshift well, but also what they do differently too. Like this Pirate Warrior is not going to be the same strategy. I mean, within reason, because aggro Pirate Warrior is gonna aggro. But it's interesting to see what they do different to their wild and their standard counterparts.
Oh yeah, and the parts of your strategy that you get to keep. We see some of that right now. With the Rusty Hook.
Parachute Frigate, the Rusty Hook. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. But then having to, you might think about playing a Restless Mummy, but that's more of a controlling card, right? The Restless Mummy, the 4-mana reborn that allows you to try to maintain some board control. If
Sure.
you're shifting your strategy a little bit away from all-out aggression and a little bit more towards board control, then yeah, Restless Mummy can allow you to lock down a board that you've defend your ship's cannon and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, what was fascinating to me was to see what we initially thought Apollo's Warlock build we thought was going to be a Zoolock, but actually was not at all. So it was really cool to see, like, some of the innovation too. Because I would bet you $10. I'm trying to decide what a Pauper appropriate amount to bet would be, but I would bet you a Pauper appropriate amount of money to that he started with a Zoolock deck and then just built more and more healing.
And then discovered, it's like, wait a minute, I now have a control Warlock.
Oh,
I
which
now
by
have
the
a
way,
mid-range Warlock. Yeah.
Speaking of, while we're talking about money here, I would also like to shout out one of our sponsors, Techno Dude, for sweetening the pot for us. Go check him out. He's a great Hearthstone streamer, a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Was a competitor, did get bested by one of these fellas. But he is a stiff competitor. Did not quite make it to top 8, but I would believe in another tournament he would. So just want to say thanks to our pal Techno Dude. Nether Space Historian discovering a dragon. Ooh, the Deathwing. Which
again.
Deathwing?
Gosh, it looks like it's going to be the big one.
I think you picked the big one. I mean, as much as I love the other one, the meme, that one has always felt like a win more card to me. And Deathwing could really get you out of some jams. Especially if your opponent is not expecting the errant Deathwing.
Yeah, and its ability, this is one of the few ways that you can actually get some area of effect board control removal, right?
You're talking about by looking.
If you make it to 10 mana and you are behind on the board, so you can just Deathwing, and that's one of the most complete board clears you can get.
I would say it's very efficient in that it clears everything. I mean, losing your hand, small price to pay.
Yeah, that's right. What do you need your hand for anyway?
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. As an aggro player, I don't know. I'm trying to get rid of that as fast as possible. The Kobold Lackey. I'm loving the use of lackeys in Apollo's builds here.
Yeah, able to generate them using the some of the discovering cards we've been talking about. Evil Quartermaster, allowing him to gain a little bit of armor and then gain some of those utility, and also finding ways to get around. That's how we got that Ethereal Lackey to potentially find some premium warrior removal. Didn't work last game, but I mean, he's got 2 copies of the Evil Quartermaster, so he has a couple of chances to try to find the lackey that he wants. And this imprisoned Gnarg still dormant for Sapo, and Sapo trying to figure out exactly what this turn looks like, because right now he has Charge in his hand.
Which I like. I think that's a really interesting play just because of the explosiveness, and there's not a lot of, Leroy Jenkins does not exist in Pauper, so you're not necessarily probably playing around explosiveness and things.
Yeah, and this is some of the finest top end you can probably find in the form of this Reckless Rocketeer that we see in hand, but also a little bit of, not exactly burn, but Heroic Strike is a way to come up with 4 damage out of nowhere.
Oh, turn 8, that's 9 damage, which, I mean, getting your opponent to like 1 to 0, that's tough. Getting your opponent to 9, not as hard, particularly when your opponent is just giving you weapons.
Right. And actually, look at this board situation that Apollo has set up for
when you're just taking
Sapo. Like, there's no, his can't be targeted is not going to be able to be executed. So now Sapo might be in a situation where he has to spend things like some of his charge, some of his burst damage, just to try to remain
get rid
alive.
of it. Yeah. Well, and that Scale Bane is definitely going to be doing some work if you don't immediately remove it. And it looks like he's not going to be able to. So 2 procs off of that Scale Bane, I mean, essentially turns it into an 11-5 on turn 5, which, if I'm doing my math right, 11-5 is pretty good.
Yeah, mathematically speaking, that is pretty good.
It's a lot of value. A lot of value.
Wow, gonna be able to set up another taunt, and this importantly has lifesteal.
Ooh, that's bad. But the Kor'kron Elite, however, is a fairly decent answer to it. So what you could do here potentially is he could execute the 2/6 and then run the Kor'kron Elite into the Feywing, which is again good, just not ideal because I'm certain he was hoping to save some of this explosiveness for the head.
Yeah, and so we're going to see Sapo dedicate some of that burst damage we were just talking about in the form of that Heroic Strike in conjunction with the other half of his axe, and having to spend this Kor'kron, like you said, to take. I mean, you can't get trucked by an 11-4 over and over again. Like
you can barely do it once.
Right, the 3 times will overkill you.
Yeah, 11-4. That's of all the things I've been hit in the face with, I would say 11 damage is about my 29th favorite. Wait,
Right.
19th favorite, right? Hang on.
Actually, wait a minute. Is Sapo thinking about? Okay, for a second there, because
Oh,
Sapo
that's-
was taking his time on this turn. I thought he was thinking about, can I take this hit, and do I win more often if I do? But
Well, I think the argument is the flexibility that Corcoran Elite allows that Reckless Rocketeer simply doesn't, just because a 6 cost and a 4 cost, right?
oh, for sure.
Ooh,
for sure. I was thinking maybe
I-
that everything was going face. I was thinking maybe he was just
Yeah.
like, you know what? I will take the 11. And
Bronze Explorer is, man, that was nasty.
gosh.
Those were great rips from the dragons. I totally missed. Did not mean to comment. Did not mean to skip over the Dragon Roar like that. Dragon Consort and Dragon Explorer are about 2 of the better dragons you could find for Dragon decks. There's a Corcoran Elite coming down, clearing me life. Steel and
This is, I mean, I'm just looking at the board situation right now where Sapo seems like he is just about out of gas, which is not uncommon when you're playing an aggressive deck. The problem is your opponent's supposed to be floating around that 9 health you were talking about, you know, the 9.
Right.
And I'm doing some math right now, and that's 32. And a
Yeah,
fistful
that's just
of cards.
some quick math, 5 minutes on that problem. Yeah, it's not something I like to see running out of gas this early. Normally, yeah, you're fighting for again that like 5 to 9 damage in an aggro deck. However, if you just can't get down to that, it's going to be very hard to play off the top of the deck. See, and like ripping a Reckless Rocketeer, if you were lower, for instance, would be great. But right now, when you're just struggling to even maintain any sort of board presence, is difficult to say what to do with it. Now, that being said, Reckless Rocketeer can double as some removal because, again, 5 damage immediately anywhere is pretty good. But
Yeah, he's just going to run out. And actually having to execute that Dragon Consort, because otherwise he was just dead on board. So
Yeah.
he's going to have to...
he's still fighting, which you have to applaud Sabakuru for really saying in this and holding onto the Reckless Rocketeer just so he does, in any case he can fight back, keep that last little bit of burst, which is great.
And he's going to have to find some ways, because I'm looking through his list right now, and I mean, charge damage is supposed to be putting the game away, and it looks like Apollo's just going to not run out of not only cards to control the board, you know, Evasive Worm and Blackwing Corruptor. Evasive Worm is pretty much strictly board control, but Blackwing Corruptor can be used to try to clear up mid-range minions.
Yeah.
But if you don't have to clear up mid-range minions, it's just a 5/4 that deals 3. It's like a neutral fire elemental, and so it looks like Sapo is thinking about if there's any way out of this. No, he's going to scoop
And
him
he's
up.
going to decide that there is not. Unfortunate. But it's what you do when you hit a matchup that does not like aggro, and aggro is one of those niche decks. As much as you need it to keep other decks honest in a format, no matter what card game you're playing, aggro needs to exist in some way, shape, or form. It does have hard counters, and it looks like he just ran into a few of those, unfortunately.
And that warrior deck is set up in such a way, you know, you're talking about dragon. One of the sort of things that dragon decks do quite well is generate value. And so if you can't kill it quickly enough, eventually it will just out card economy you. And so
Right.
aggro decks can try to get in underneath that, you know, try to kill the decks before they are able to stabilize and start generating. But just think about the hand, right? Like the hand size differential at the end of that game was crazy.
And I think that's why we're seeing so much dominance with Demon Hunter on standard right now, is because that is a deck that likes to be aggressive but doesn't deal with some of the same because of the outcast mechanic, saying, hey, when you play this off the top of your deck, it's actually good. You're not dealing with some of the same drawbacks of a typical aggro deck, because aggro decks are meant to be gassed, right? If you are playing off the top of the deck, and I say this as a big dumb aggro player myself, if you get to the phase of the game where you're pulling cards off the top of the deck, it becomes very hard for you to win. However, if those cards now have an ability that say, oh, well, if you just rip this off the top of the deck, you can draw an extra card or something like that. That stage of the game becomes less good, and I think that is an interesting design space for Demon Hunter, but also why we're seeing it is because it hasn't quite found what it wants to do just yet.
And I'm just figuring out exactly. Apologies for the delay. I'm trying to. Okay, here we go. I lost to the spectate, but I'm putting it back together. So momentarily we will be back in the game, and it looks like it is going to be Warrior from Sapo versus Warlock for Apollo.
Pulling out the warrior again. Cool.
And this is that control Warlock that we just. Well, I say control. It's sort of a mid-rangey control-y. It's like a heal Warlock.
There is. Sabakuru's Hearthstone crashed. He had to reset, but he's backing up. We're back and running. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not certain, and probably to his credit, not certain that the aggro deck is going to be as efficient against this deck as it could be against other decks, just because this deck has so much taunt and so much healing. I mean, basically, when we were talking about potential healing cards in the format, this deck appears to have just all of them.
Yeah. And
so it's going to be cool.
There's very few additional healing options available than the ones that Apollo has found, as well as defensive options. This one's really good at slowing the game down, and it doesn't have the kind of, if you're looking through the card list right now, it doesn't really have. I mean, it has Bone Mares, of course, very effective if you're ahead on board, and it can turn your high health minions into dangerous minions. But this again, in this particular matchup, Sapo once again is the beatdown, right? In most card games, you have a deck that is the beatdown, and no question who the beatdown is in this matchup.
No, absolutely not. Sapo's going to be the aggressor here, and not having a turn 1 or 2 play does hurt him.
Yeah.
Not to get that board presence, because really what you're doing right now is a race until you're trying to beat them out until they stabilize.
And just trying to take away. And we can see that Apollo has actually been able to calmly life tap in the early turns of the game, which as a controlling warlock, that's like the happiest moment. It's like, oh my gosh, I can life tap and not die.
The chef's kiss.
Yeah. And already some of these powerful defensive options coming out. Tar Creeper.
I really think that when we see more of this format, Tar Creeper is going to be in a lot of decks. However, a ship's cannon with 2 pirates on hand, pretty good. Pretty good. The question here is he going to drop the deckhand? And he does. We see that. Now he's probably going to clear. Oh, did not roll the way he wanted it to, unfortunately.
Yeah, still has the clear, though. Still able to go ahead and commit the South Sea deckhand and his weapon attack to be able to clear this Tar Creeper. But yeah, definitely would have rathered that cannon shot. Take that damage.
Being able to just ping him with your rusty hook.
Mm-hmm. It's so rusty. I'm worried about pirates and the possibility of tetanus. But now, coin Tar Lurker. Apollo just saw Sapo have a hard time getting around that Tar Creeper.
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's 5 health was tricky. Might I interest you in 7?
Well, it's one of those. It's just a new video game, right? Every boss battle is just tougher. He's gonna drop an 11 health guy eventually.
Right.
That'll be fine. And the bosses, the Tar Lurker that was once a boss is now just a minion. We're gonna see a logical progression in this game. It's gonna be fun.
And actually, speaking of logical progression, how do you get through this if you're Sapo? Because right now I'm looking at the if he spends all of his attacks, it's 9.
I think you drop the Sky Raider, hoping for something that's useful, and hoping the 2 damage goes just straight to the Tar Lurker. You really gotta pray to RNGesus here.
And yeah, let's see what's inside the Sky Raider box here. It is in fact another rusty hook. Oh man, but of course he has his
can't
fiery
play
war
it right now. Absolutely cannot play that right now. Could be better later on, because just pirates like having weapons. And the signature weapon of the pirate is a hook. Of course. As we all know.
So it looks like he's going to spend his Kor'kron Elite to go ahead and get through here. Yeah, doesn't want to lose the value of half of his axe, and it's going to go ahead and spend...
Yeah, I think that's probably smart. Just to get rid of it, and just because again, this guy is going to stabilize, and whether Sapo knows it or not, he's got to figure... The fact that this Warlock has not played something by turn 4 or 5, really, that isn't defensive, something must be up. Ooh, and that Hellfire is gonna hurt.
Yeah, clears the board. We don't see a ton of Apollo's life gain in hand just yet, but we saw that there's plenty. But it looks like it's time. Sapo's hitting the gas. He's like,
here we go. I love it. That is what you need to play. You need to play bold. You need to play risky. You need to play unafraid of healing threats, because if you're playing cautiously, you cannot win an aggro match.
Right, and there comes a point where every single turn that goes by that Sapo has not won this game, it's going to be more difficult to win. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a reprise of last turn where we just go ahead and throw down the Rocketeers in the face.
The Sky Raider's probably first, just to see what you rip, and not bad in conjunction with the first mate. In fact, that may alter the play up just a little bit, because being able to spawn 3 damage off the Rusty Hook is pretty good, but being able to spawn 6 damage off the Rusty Hook is even better.
That's true, and with the Heroic Strike in hand already, the possible damage over time with this hook. And this board, Apollo had to use up one of his premium board removal tools in the form of that Hellfire. This doesn't seem threatening enough to Hellfire. The Battle Cry's not going to trigger off of this, but it is just a big old 6/6 guy. But it doesn't matter if you have a big old 6/6 guy on the board if you are dead.
No, you can just fly right on over it. Now, spending all your health and healing resources, pretty smart. In fact, that's exactly what Sapo doesn't want to see. Exactly. But pulling an Execute's pretty good if he decides he wants to deal with the 6/6, which with this 1/1 and the Execute, it makes it a pretty easy decision, I think.
Gosh, actually, he's only 5 damage off lethal right now, isn't he? With the
he is.
Rocketeer and the Heroic Strike.
Yeah, and then the two Rusty Hook strikes. Man, now the problem is the Bone Mare.
Oh, for sure.
Is Sapo going to be playing around the Bone Mare or another Tower Creeper?
And can you afford to? You were saying that there comes a point where you have to just play bravely. Can you? And this is what I would assume that Sapo's thinking about right now. Do I need to try to, value trade this 1/1, get an execute, or can I just take away the life tap, take away some of the board control tools? Because once you get a Warlock down in that sub 5 range, they are very reticent to use life taps, Hellfires, Abyssal Enforcers, Dread Infernals.
Right, exactly. Oh, and he is going to clear the 6/6, which is good. I think a smart play on his part. Because you don't really need the Heroic Strike and the Reckless Rocketeer on the same turn if you're not going to be going lethal. I think that's a mistake a lot of aggro players tend to make, is just, let's go face, let's rush him down as fast as possible, when really you need to save that burst damage for when your opponent cannot deal with it.
And let's see what the draw is. Kor'kron Elite is the
draw.
draw.
Kor'kron is good. I don't know if it's going to be enough, unfortunately. That 7/7 is very, very hard to deal with.
And the battle cry giving taunt is just a major stumbling block.
That's really what we're dealing with. Immediately, it essentially makes the Apollo's health go from 13 to 20, which might get him just out of range of that aggression, because dealing 30 damage, dealing even 40 damage with an aggro deck should not be unheard of, but dealing 50, 60, man, that's got to be... That gap just gets wider and wider and wider.
And this is where Sapo, committed that execute last turn in order to clear the 6/6. Desperately wished that it was in hand right now, but he didn't. The amount of board control that represents over time is just too much to allow it to live in his mind. And so now we're going to see a bunch of burst damage used up. The hook is now used up. Oh my gosh, another! This is the fastest Bone Mare.
Oh no!
Galloping off the top.
The first Bone Mare, by my beard, by my beard, he hits him with.
You'd make a cute puppet.
It's not often the first Bone Mare. It's really the second Bone Mare.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the second Bone Mare. I really, really thought I loved Sapo's odds on this one, but yeah, just 2 Bone Mares, all the healing. Apollo really just played everything right, and I mean, quite honestly, built his deck very, very, very well to deal with any aggressive threats. I'm surprised we didn't see any of the common that when you draw it you heal for, but kind of them's the breaks of a competitive card game.
And was able to actually get control of the board and just leverage a tempo advantage to find success there. just crazy. And now he has 2 chances to win with his Priest up against. It looks like it's going to be the Hunter from Sapo here, the Mech Hunter.
Oh, I love mechs. I tried to so badly on our first Pauper Pop Off to make Mech Paladin a thing. Actually, I'm sorry, no, I didn't. I tried Hand Buff, and then later I was like, okay, we're gonna make this Mech, and then that was too many things to try and do for a Pauper deck.
And actually, that's a great point about new meta games as well. Is it can be. When you think about all the things that are available, every common and every basic is a huge pool of cards to work from, and it can be tricky in the deck building phase to try to pick a strategy and then execute that as effectively as possible.
Well, and this is a little I don't know, maybe this is obvious, but a friend of mine who is a high level Magic the Gathering player once described deck building to me as there has to be an idea, and I don't know why, but that just made deck building click for me.
Right.
and again, it's one of those John Maddenisms where it's oh, okay, yeah, obviously there has to be an idea. It's almost as if he said, now you've got to put cards in the deck.
The goal is to keep your health above 0 whilst simultaneously reducing your opponent's health to 0.
Right, but at some point I was just oh yeah, it does. That is the goal. And I really, really love just the tempo with this Priest that we're seeing. Radiant Elemental into Acolyte of Agony with just no response from the Hunter yet.
Yeah, Hunter having to hero power is not exactly what Hunter would like to be doing, but this isn't a full-out aggressive one where it has to be definitely maximizing damage every turn. This one has the ability to play a little bit of a mid-rangier game if needed, and we've seen Apollo just include healing in so many of his lists at this point.
Right. Well, because it's important, right? Because I guess when you're walking into a blind meta like this, you know that you might particularly be, like I was saying earlier, we saw a lot of success with face hunters in the earlier brackets of the tournament. So, in fact, I think Hunter may, and I could be wrong about this, Hunter may have been early brackets the winningest class. So, coming with tools to deal with basically everything when you don't know what the meta is going to be is pretty smart on his part, I think.
Yeah, it can be very tough to do. And with both Radiant Elementals on the board, Apollo is clearly saying that I would like to have the control of this board. You know, we talked about how the deck lists are open. He knows that any mech creature that survives immediately goes up in threat level if it's able to stick on the board for even a single turn.
Yeah, Mechs is almost a combo deck. Almost a combo deck. It's not quite, but just because you get the Mech Warpers or in, you know, the Galvanizers or the Cog Masters, really, like, it just kind of. I'm using combo deck very, very loosely here.
Well, I'd say it's definitely a deck that has a lot of combos in it, and any of them can deal incredible, like the ability to turn a War Gear into a +5/+5.
Ooh, the kooky chemist. Yeah. Interesting. I couldn't tell you the last time. I couldn't tell you if I've ever seen kooky chemist built, like, put in a, like, real standard, not standard even, but any competitive deck. I don't know if kooky chemist has made it. However, that was really clever, and I really, really love the use of it. And I love the use of it potentially to put, like, say, Priest of the Feast online with, if you don't have Inner Fire.
And yeah,
right?
Kooky
It's
Chemist.
it's very smart.
Yeah, that was one of those cards that was sort of a way to add an additional Inner Fire to your deck potentially, or deal with Doomsayers. But yeah, just having it to deal with big taunts and potentially big magnetic threats is a great utilization of the card. Plus, it's a 4/4, right? It's a 4-mana 4/4. So even at its very worst, it's
just a 4-mana 4/4, which can be good. Now, the question here is when that Mech Warper he just put down, when should that have been put down? Did he put that down too early?
I don't think so, because there isn't an OTK situation built around Mech Warper. It's just really a way to explode onto the board. It's too bad he had to play it from behind. That's definitely one of those cards you'd rather play while you have managed to gain a foothold on the board and your opponent can't make value trades. But so we're gonna go ahead and see the Ursatron come down, and now a Spellbreaker off the top is going to shut that down.
Well, you also have to wonder what he was looking for with the Ursatron instead of playing the Piloted Shredder, which just has a lot more value, especially when you're trying to, you know, come from behind and stick on the board just even a little bit.
Putting a threat directly into play as opposed to having to draw it. One of the few ways you can actually get a Doomsayer. It's the death rattle of the Piloted Shredder.
We love Doomsayer. God, Doomsayer would be just so good right now.
But
Cest la veste.
Indeed. And so now we see some of
pardon my French.
Yeah, some of the difficulty that Sapo's running into is Venomizer is much better when you can magnetize it to something.
I would say it's basically only good when you can magnetize it to something like a gyrocopter. I mean, 2 turns from now, that is an insane play, putting a Venomizer onto a Eurocopter. But we're not going to be able to get that, probably. I'm not saying definitely, I'm just saying most likely.
Wow, actually, because of the changes to Holy Nova, Apollo would have lethal damage if it weren't for the changes to Holy Nova. But now that Holy Nova doesn't hit the hero's face anymore, Apollo is just barely short of lethal damage in this scenario.
You've got to wonder why the Explosive Trap hasn't hit the field as well yet. Just simply because if you're dealing with a lot of threats, a wide board, even 2 damage to everything. I mean, right now, this is technically saying deal 8 damage to your opponent's board. And we're going to Venomize the Shredder, which makes it a threat that needs to be dealt with. However, is he going to respect the Shredder?
I would assume that we're probably going to see all of this go around the Shredder. Zealous Initiate is going to be the pick. And it looks like, Apollo is going to be able to set Sapo down to, let me do my math here, 1 or 2. It's going to be...
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It is.
Yeah, 1. Gonna set him to exactly 1.
Now I am. Is that Gyrocopter probably not going to be enough? I don't know that Hunter has any healing. It's not a thing that Hunter seems interested in doing at all. But
no, it would have to be looking into some of the maybe a beast that has it, or into the neutral sets, to try to find it. But like you're saying, this isn't a control deck. This is a
the help for the Doomsayer? No, that's not going to do it, unfortunately.
But how crazy would a Doomsayer been off of that, though?
Would have been insane. Well, that's why I like the RNG cards.
Yeah,
I think normally, you have to weigh the opportunity cost of a card that has RNG. but it could potentially get you out of jail for free.